Hey there, fellow adventurers! I am Sunshade, and today, instead of a World of Warcraft guide, I'm going to propose a discussion on the possibility of loot lockout removals for raid content. Now, the big disclaimer is that no such changes have been announced by Blizzard Entertainment. But myself, having heard the suggestion of loot lockout removal once in a while, I figured it would be worth an open discussion. The opinions presented in the video are mine alone, and I welcome you all to join me in the comments and tell me how you would feel about such a change to the game. Now, what would a loot lockout removal mean for raid content in World of Warcraft? We can already spam Mythic Plus for more chances at that best-in-slot trinket we really want. But what about raids? Would loot lockout removal be a good or a bad choice for the game as it stands now? Let's talk about its advantages and disadvantages per difficulty and the impact this would have on the community and the game. And just to be clear, I do not mean mythic raids from current content whatsoever. I'm simply referring to looking for raid, normal and heroic raids from current content and past content like legacy raids. Maybe mythic legacy, but we'll see about that. Once again, not referring to mythic raiding in current content. Now, while the removal of loot lockouts would be a boon to use for those unfortunate souls who are never lucky, or for alt enthusiasts, it's important to consider the potential consequences. For LFR, it could facilitate more frequent participation from geared players, aiding lower geared friends or guildmates, or facilitating transmog and tier set farming. Enchanters could also benefit by farming materials early in a patch, or more precisely at the start of an expansion. Now, when it comes to normal and heroic difficulties, the benefits are less clear. While the ability to spam this content for gear would be appealing to many, myself included, it could exacerbate existing issues. I would simply love it if my alts could just spam this content until they get their items, or even my main if I happen to miss out on the heroic raid with the guild. It is indeed a great way to gear really fast, but some players argue that the game is already tailored towards the highest level of raiding, and this change could further reinforce that perception. Additionally, it could lead to issues within guilds, as leaders may set expectations based on their personal desires, thus creating a bit of a toxic environment for some of the players. While this specific issue may not create problems to Blizzard in itself, its ramifications would. It will create issues within guilds, and in my many years of playing this game, I have seen so many guilds transform and so many raiders or raid leaders become toxic or unfair because they set a requirement based on their own desires, which does not necessarily work well with some of the other players in the guild. You need to know exactly what kind of guild you want to have and what kind of guild you are in. Consider a mythic guild aiming for cutting edge, but they're not quite there yet. The players are decent, the DPS is decent, you have a couple of raid loggers, you have a couple of log lovers, a few who are average from all points of view, and a few who do all the tactics and kind of negative DPS. Maybe with an extra month or two in the patch, this guild would make it to CE on their own. They're friendly and they really enjoy playing the game together. Now imagine the same guild with the ability to spam heroic for best-in-slot items and loot. Allowing unlimited farming of heroic raids could disrupt the guild dynamic. The raid loggers will never be online because they get burned out from the repetitive content. The log lovers will blame everyone who doesn't spam heroic and try to make them feel insignificant. Because let's be honest, log lovers are a little bit toxic sometimes, some of them. Don't want to say names. Anyway, the average players with more gear will still be average. The raid leader may request all of them to spam this content, or increase the amount of raid nights or raid hours. This generally does not sit well with people who actually have a life outside of the game, families, jobs, and so on. These people will fall behind on gear, and they will be pushed out by their guilds for not devoting so many hours to gearing and the game, which, by the way, should still be enjoyable. Don't forget this. The whole situation could ultimately lead to player dissatisfaction and even attrition from the game. Let's think of it as farming a mount. You can farm a boss 40 times in a day instead of spreading that over a period of a couple of weeks or months. You may be super excited about getting that mount fast. You will never go back to do that content, right? Think of Headless Horseman. Okay, this is a great example. We go there every year for a chance at the mount. If it would be there all year long, I don't think we would spam it that much. And given that some people are only playing the game for mount farming, transmogs, pets, and so on, once they get everything, why would they still log into the game? But I digress. Getting back to the advantages and disadvantages, let's talk about the community. Loot lockout removal will cause less loot drama, but the players may feel forced into grinding, and this is exactly what we hated about Shadowlands and what we love about Dragonflight: no grind. The gear progression will be closer to Mythic in the first few weeks at best. No progress guild will ever go back to Heroic once they do a couple of Mythic bosses and push high keys or PvP enough to get Mythic item level. It's wonderful for alts though. And while gear progression is closer to Mythic Plus, it will not be close enough, and dungeons will still need to be spammed for higher item level, as Mythic Plus still currently gives us higher item level than Heroic gear. So while removing loot lockouts may reduce loot drama, it could also create a sense of obligation to grind the content excessively. So while gear progression may initially mimic Mythic raiding, it may not be sustainable in the long run, thus leading to burnout. The increased availability of loot could lead to a decline in group cohesion as well, as some players may leave after obtaining the desired items they wanted in a raid. And while there may be more groups running the content, supposing you go with the same group to farm a specific item, let's say a trinket, you're not the only one. As soon as that trinket drops and someone else gets it, the chances are they won't stay in the group to do it all over again. Sure, some may stay, but let's be honest, how many people would do this if they had nothing to gain? Not many. Now, if we add a currency drop to it, they might stay. They might stay with a currency that allows them to buy the items they want. Additionally, the removal of loot lockouts could incentivize boosters to exploit the system, further complicating the issue. Boosters, RMT or not, will jump at the occasion to spam this, and many people will definitely 100% buy more often, as boosters will definitely offer a piece of item to be spammed until it drops. It wouldn't be the first time. Now, the advantages for Race to World First are quite big. This would be much cheaper and faster gearing, best in slot items all around on all the meta classes, and this would possibly make some lower guilds feel forced into recruiting specific roles only, rather than a rounded up team of all classes. The demand for helpers to Race to World First drops completely. They can just do it themselves and for free. Organizations, teams, and guilds who are producing content for the Race to World First will have extremely repetitive content from the same characters all the time. It's pretty much the same thing as watching split runs, but from a more limited amount of POVs, as they would not have to log over on alts, and assuming that random players brought in for trading items would no longer be involved, the viewership may also drop a little bit, making this a disadvantage instead of an advantage in my opinion. This situation encourages splits and farming not only for Race to World First guilds, but for everyone who wants to progress the raid. I, for myself and my characters, would love this. I can gear my alts quickly and easily, I can have them ready for video content earlier and enjoy more difficult content from the first few weeks rather than wait for them to get geared through vaults if lucky. I would not force this upon my fellow raiders for the exact reasons I mentioned, but I'm pretty sure I would feel pressured into pushing my main as far as it can get geared and take up all of my time from family and job. But if I were working for Blizzard and I had to give an honest-to-God opinion on this, trying to keep the peace among the people and the drama to a minimum, and to keep more players subbed for a longer time, I would not recommend this past LFR or, let's say, normal. Let's say normal would work, but definitely not heroic. Not from the beginning of a patch. 5-6 weeks in? Sure, maybe. Make it free for all, bring it at the same time as the catalyst, but grinding and farming for mains from the get-go is just a can of worms I would not open. So while some players may welcome the removal of loot lockouts for personal progression, it's essential to consider the broader implications. For Blizzard, maintaining a balance between player satisfaction and game longevity is crucial. While the idea has merit, implementing it could lead to unintended consequences, including player burnout and decreased engagement. The loot lock is in place to keep people coming back to the game every week at least. This will only push them into complaining about a lack of content early on, and I don't think this is something Blizzard may go for in the first place. It's a nice idea for the social players or the ones with lower progress, and it will be loved by alcoholics. However, it does not keep people playing. There's no reason to come back. It will just mean more burnout, more grind, more farm, and nothing to do once it's done. And that's when the complaints will start piling up even more. Thank you very much for watching. I hope I didn't enrage anyone. Please go ahead to the comment section below and leave your opinions in there, negative or positive. It's really a complicated issue, and I think it needs to be discussed. I think it has its merits for some parts of the game, but not all of them. So, what do you think? If you enjoy this kind of content and the guides I generally do, don't forget to hit a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Bye!